speaking in the languages of the people that, now whether they were or not, we don't know. But we feel like what was coming out their mouth was the way their brain was responding to this presence of spacecraft. But for a moment, I felt so fantastic that someone was actually interpreting that to realize that it was what it was, you know, and I had realized, oh no, it couldn't be. So they're certainly not interpreting it to be what we interpreted it to be. And yet everything that went on during their little presentation, we saw at one level, and we know that the other people who were there saw it at another level. Completely different.
Well, I wonder if that happened to the 120 people who were there, if they were the ones that were the survivors or something, you know, to carry on the future. You know, I'm talking about in that area.
They said there were 120 people there who Jesus' life had touched during the time he had been here. That there were approximately 120 people present. Now there were more than 120 people actually there, but 120 of them who his life had touched. And of course, the experience was such a dramatic one of the flames and the smoke and the thundering and the wind and all, that Peter comes out and starts preaching a sermon just as soon as it quiets down, and converts a bunch of Jews. And they said that in that day that they thought that 1,000 people had come over to the church, you know, to Christianity, because of that event. And it was just interesting for us to see how we felt one thing while they felt nothing. And then also they have at the place a replica, a copy, a scale copy of the tomb, and which we thought was very interesting. No, you can't go in, but you can look in, and they have like a little floor plan on picture, and then you actually, they have built it, you know, I guess fiberglass or plaster, but it's actually the size of the tomb. The stone is there, and you can see in it and see where they thought that the body was laid on. Now, for me, and I think probably for T too, it's very interesting for us to look at that spot, because we were looking at a replica of a physical spot where a member of the next level had had a traumatic experience, and that spot or that experience has changed the lives of millions of people for 2,000 years since that moment, in all the different ways they've interpreted what's been on there. So I've told you about our little visit to the. There's not much else there. There's just the tomb and this little presentation, which is the presentation is a picture, and they just spot little faces in the picture and then blow up and show the whole thing, along with all the narration. And the picture is the people who were gathered at this spot where this thing happened. And of course, what humans are thinking of what happened was that they were visited by the Holy Spirit, and therefore all began to speak in tongues. And of course, this is why all these groups now who call themselves Pentecostals, I guess, are using that event to label their brand of Christianity, because it's focusing more on this experience of the so-called Holy Spirit.
When they're speaking in tongues, are they speaking the language that they spoke back then?
They think they are. And many of them even have gone to the trouble to have people try to translate what it is they're speaking and come up with the various Hebrew dialects and all this to try to verify that they are speaking in the same languages that were the common languages of the Middle East in that area. Of course, I think most of them are babbling, if not all. But if you read a little Hebrew phonetics, and then do your babbling a lot better.
They're all bright light shining.
Yes.
It shows fire.
Well, before the picture shows, there's a light that that's on the curtain that I think is illustrating the Holy Spirit.
Well,
I'm thinking whether it's the same picture that I saw. A lot of open
Windows.
windows and light shining, and I'm wondering if that's certainly
This is a lot of open windows.
on with the
Oh, the light coming in. And there's these little balls of fire all around in the air.
This happened at sunrise, I think, because it starts out where the light of the sun is rising and it comes through the window,
That's right.
and the windows across the back, and then the room gets lighter and lighter. And but then when the actual Holy Spirit comes to them, the wind begins to blow, and the wind blew not even in that room. A fan came on, and
Well, there were no glass panes in the windows. Probably the old model spacecraft caused quite a tornado inside the building.
but it above the head of the people showed little balls of fire.
Moving.
And it kind of emphasized those, I guess, during the time. But it was rumbling and lights flashed and things like that. But to listen to the man talk, it sounded like he was describing a spacecraft. Now that's where we were.
The paraphrase that he used in paraphrasing the second chapter of Acts sounded like he was, and I wondered where he got that, for that to be such a good description.
You talk about people being asleep, you know. They, to not recognize that, they have to be very much asleep. It's just they're not, it isn't time for them to know it.
But it's going to be.
Okay, any more questions?
I was wondering, when we talked about reasoning, and perhaps that will be used into some manner that will be that question of spectacular reasoning that. You talked about the material on the things behind, like the tape, and, well, all the material. And I wanted to know, maybe you could help me with my thinking, because I got to thinking about the society today. I got to thinking about where these materials would go, whose hands they would end up in. And the only thing I could see from all of what I've read and discerned, that it looks to me like the first thing will happen is the government would confiscate them. And I've kind of assumed
They can confiscate it if it belongs to an individual.
We have made some preparations in that regard to a degree, to so that we're not just going to leave it for them to do with as they please. We have made some preparations so that it won't be quite that free.
Won't be just left. Maybe an earthquake will occur, and be buried and be found.
I think it was last meeting when you mentioned at the end that you weren't sure about like coming across. And I was wondering, I was thinking
When I mentioned that I was concerned that wasn't getting those 3 points across very well, or that they didn't have the impact on you all that they had on me. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking generally, thinking about trying to really listen, just really carefully, because it seemed like there was so much coming and everything that I could hardly keep up with it. And at one point,
mind or somewhere along the line, I was so distracted by thought that it seemed like something different was happening from past lessons. Where it seemed like everything was happening on a level where it was like, I remember years ago you used to tell us not to take anything in a personal way or to feel like it was anything we should feel bad about. And I don't remember it clearly tonight as I was thinking about it the other day. But he mentioned a couple times ago that frequency seems like it had changed. And I was trying to figure out what it was that I was feeling. I can't really put it into words, but it just seemed during that meeting that something was just happening on a level that seemed new.
I don't know. It's very strange because this is just a personal experience, and it isn't the first time it's happened. But when we left, I was very concerned that I had just babbled, and T said no, that she, and I trust this. I know that T tells me if I'm babbling, and I appreciate it. But T said no, that I worried that nothing I was saying had any impact to it, that it didn't really carry the potency of the things that I had felt and that I was trying to help get across. But T felt like that it was very potent and that the points had come across and had come across very clearly. So I don't know what happens in times like that when I feel desperate. There must be some presence around me trying to convince me at that time that, oh, why are you trying? What you're trying to say is not worth it. Nobody doesn't need it. And that's just about the feeling that I had. But though I wanted to ignore it, so I kept pushing on because I didn't want to give in to it. But that's not the first time that's happened. And sometimes that has happened to us when we have had very important things to share with you. And we have left feeling like, what was that a dud? We thought like we really had something significant to share with you, and then suddenly, in the moment of trying to share it, it didn't sound nearly as significant as it had, as what we had felt before. But just for your interest, you might know that there was something trying very hard to convince me that nothing of any significance was coming out, and it was just a waste of time. And yet I don't believe it because I trust T's interpretation of the meeting.
There's a point here. Did you have more to say?
Well, I was saying, it seemed like there was a point, and all the little subpoints too, just been in a pattern that I had experienced over the last few days before that. And it seemed like everything that was said was so applicable in the moment to everything that I was experiencing that I just couldn't really probably show anything. Like I said at the end, maybe because.
Well, that's good, and actually, that's good, and actually, we don't expect you all to respond in the ways that you used to respond, but we can still usually feel that you're feeling it, and I think I would have even felt it had something not been present trying to convince me to stop wasting my effort. So, and usually when that's happening, it's pretty important stuff, or there wouldn't be such a strong interference. And I didn't feel like the interference was coming from you all, if that helps. It didn't feel like you were responsible for the interference.
Well, I just wanted to ask that everything you said was just perfect with what I was needing to hear again. And it was clearer than I had heard at meetings, in comparison.
maybe because I was tuned into what you're saying more, so I don't understand why the others are what you're saying. It was clear as bell.
You know, the frequency did change a couple of meetings ago. But this is the way I feel. It has not gone back to the frequency that it was prior to this, as far as I know. It doesn't seem to be any different. Now, what would happen to you all when something like that happens? Can you all imagine? Well, in other words, your understanding will increase. The lessons might seem more to hit home, or you might have a greater understanding of it. Now, the ones of you who are thinking, well, gee, it didn't hit me that well, you know, don't feel badly about it. Just go and listen to the tape more and absorb more of the frequency. Don't let it get you down, because it doesn't mean that you missed out on anything. It just means that your comprehension needs to improve, and you just need to absorb more of the frequency.
Oh, to goodness you don't get comfortable. Or you don't think, well, I've gotten used to this, and everything, you know, it's okay. It's not, you know, as exciting as I'd like for it to be. But you cannot possibly get comfortable. If you get comfortable, we're not progressing. If you get comfortable with yourself as an individual, you're not progressing. And collectively, we're slowed down. And you have to go through this constant self-examination of, have I changed the way I'm supposed to change? Am I looking at it from a perspective that is on the proper timetable from now? Or am I still looking at it on the perspective that I was a few months ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago? Have I updated and gotten rid of the antiquated way of looking at things? Have I absorbed each new step and actually fluffed off my old, immature way of examining things? Because if you don't, you can't carry them with you. You can't look at things the way you should be looking at them today, and also look at them the way you used to look at them. You can't do that. It doesn't work. They don't mix. You'll pull yourself out of today's perspective if you try to blend them with your own.
What's that like certain things? I wonder, did the old principle of like ligatures, does that type of concept still apply? In other words, is there an X amount of period in which the task has to be completed by? You can certainly do it faster than that. Because that was what I was wondering if that's what you're trying to say.
Well, I really believe that what we started out to do has been expanded considerably. In other words, I think we were doing so well that they gave us something.
Now, she's not kidding. She's not kidding.
And because we were okay and nothing was interfering with us, they gave us something else to do.
Gave us more to do.
Now the question is, do we want to do this job real good?
I didn't hear it. I refuse to hear it.
We have to, we can't.
That's next level, you. Not very funny, is it?
So where's the blame for our citizens, right? Somebody. Well, we hope that we believe this, okay? We feel like that when your mind can take the full frequency, then your mind will be in complete control of your vehicle, and you will have accomplished your task. Okay, does that answer your question?
You know, if we can stir up anxiety, or if the next level can stir it up in us, and we can thereby stir it up in you, the proper anxiety to finish the task in the right way, as fast as we can finish it, that will spill over to them. And what they are to accomplish, they can work. They will be more anxious to do their part as beneficiaries of what we're doing. In other words, you need to transmit that anxiety. I think for a long time you felt like you should quiet the anxiety because you felt it was a threat to you. You see what we're saying? And you shouldn't feel like it's a threat to you. You should feel like it's a healthy motivation for accomplishment.
Well, no, what you want to do is absorb
You're not reaching.
that was given to you at each meeting.
You want to get it all. You're not attempting to reach it. You're attempting to absorb it all. Okay.
Good question, Robert.
I'm not talking about that kind of anxiety. No, I'm not talking about things that frustrate you and the kind of anxiety that makes you scattered or that makes you less organized. I'm talking about for a while you associated your eagerness to have this endeavor come to a point of completion. You associated that with a deadline that your vehicle had put on it, which would threaten you if you didn't reach it. And that you had to get rid of. But now we're saying, in a non-threatening way, be sure that you are anxious, but not in a scattered way or in a stressful way. But in a sense, there's a degree of stress to it, but it shouldn't be the kind of stress that would make your task less accomplishable. It should be the kind of stress that makes your task more accomplishable. Eager, yes. That you want to not waste a moment. You want to go as fast as you can go. You want a constant examination. You want to bring the full energy that you have in progressing and keep it right out here doing it, whether it's during downtime or uptime. And if you begin to get comfortable and you say, well, I made it past the humps, and so I can make it till we leave. That's the kind of talk that could lead you to real effort. And you want to, we feel like you're safe enough now. You have your vehicles under control enough now that you can bring in this eagerness to complete the task without it being threatening. Well, they're the nurturing of a planet is a long, drawn-out process. And I imagine that there are certain times when the planet, when the plants have grown to where a lot can be given to them because they're ready for a lot. In other words, it doesn't mean that it's always slow, but it's still a long time. And like I was reading the other day, how the mental patients' cases have reduced to such a small percentage since lithium, just for example. Don't know if you're all aware of lithium, but it's antidepressant, and a lot of people who were really serious manic depressants and would go into anger fits and everything else, when they started them on lithium treatments, they were just back to normal. And so we feel that the next level is slowly letting them learn about the things that would give them better control of these imbalances. And it's true that the people with mental problems are victims of genetic abuse and of serious imbalance.
The problem with lithium is that they don't know what the dosage is.
At this point?
It's trace mineral, and so unless the doctor gives it to where he knows what the symptoms are, if you had too much, I don't know what, do you know what the symptoms are?
Depression is too much? No, I don't know.
I think we bought some lithium. Don't you have some in your place?
We put somebody on lithium for a little while just as an experiment, and but it was a very mild amount.
Did we? Who was it?
Yes, Sunut took some lithium. Where's Sunut?
Did you take some?
Yes, didn't I put you on lithium? We put you on lithium. I know I took a couple of tablets of it myself to see if I felt any adverse reactions, and because we were considering seeing if it would help with this feeling of tears or
This was some time ago.
yeah, this was a long time ago. This was like when you first got to Austin. No, it's right after Lincoln first got to Houston. When Retreat was first opened in Houston, it was right there. I remember that because we talked to nutritionists in Houston right after getting there that said it was mild and was very good for that. But we don't have any in the airplane. Yes, it's called lithium. And it's in little, I believe it's in one of the organic labels. You know, the little white bottle with a little green and white label.
They have this organic brand vitamin. They have these people who stand from from the
Food and Drug Administration.
Standing over them because they are so exact, or what they make is so good that they're afraid that it can be harmful to the people, or they don't want it to do any good. I don't care.
They're trying to find fault with them because they feel like if they can find fault with them, then a lot of these other companies would automatically tumble. If they could make a big issue out of something that this company, Organics, does, that they would be able to curtail, like their Organics now does a lot of things with glands, like they made them take thyroid off the market. So they have a thyroid now, but just they can call it thyroid.
It has too much thyroxine.
And now it has no thyroxine. They made them take it out through Food and Drug Administration.
Which means that, see, the thyroxine is a prescription drug. And if a layperson takes it, then they have no depression because they may take it and it can cause harm to you. But this that the organic makes is in its natural form. It's like saying, don't eat something because you might get some thyroxine out of it. And it really couldn't do any harm, I don't think, unless it does another good.
And like she said, it was in natural form, but the way it was written when the Food and Drug Administration took thyroid off the market because of containing thyroxine, the way it was written made people unable then to put out a product called thyroid. So now they have to put out a product called bovine concentrate. Now, and they tried that for a little while, and so now the Food and Drug has said, well, that's cheating, you can't do that. So then they get a doctor, an MD, who happens to also be on the other side of the fence as a nutritionist. He's now on paperwork on their staff and putting it out with a label, now with his name on it, called thyroid again, because it's a legal kink in the paperwork. But now they also know that legally they have found a way that they can stop that. So, but a lot of people have been for so many years helped with these things that the company feels compelled to try to keep supplying them with these things that the FDA is trying to.
The NAD factor, which is a brand of vitamins, they've had their thyroid taken off the market also because they contain thyroxine. And they suspect a lot of these glands will going to be taken away because they do too good a job. Even some doctors are prescribing these glands for patients. They believe that after 45 days that it can rebuild the cell structure in that organ that you're taking it for. Like if you're taking pancreas or stomach or brain, well, and liver, stomach, kidneys, they have raw glands for all of those organs.
There's also a bill before Congress right now, maybe we told you all about it, that would really do serious damage to the health food business. It hasn't yet been decided.
I can remember 20 years ago they had the same thing, where they were trying to stop the megadose of vitamins, where they would limit what you could get on the shelf. And any megadose, you would have to get a prescription from the doctor, which the doctor wouldn't give to you because he doesn't believe in it. So,
but if this one passes, they'll have to get prescriptions for everything. You'll have to go to the MD to get a prescription for any vitamins.
I think we talked about it.
Glenda, did we answer your question? Got off track. Somebody else have a question?
You talked about blocking
vehicular response.
I was wondering, what point is it too late to just block it? Would it be okay to, say you got a readout where you knew what it was, but at that point would it be more wise to come back and signal?
At that point you have to do both. You have to block it and you have to do your little routine. Once you get the whip and know what it was all about, then you've got to do both.
But your best bet is to just stop it, because it automatically goes back, if you can get it right at the first beginning.
Well, you're not saying not to go through this and send back.
Adding to what you're doing. Okay, anybody?
That's what he's saying. The best bet is to try not to let it read out, right?
Less trouble.
Yeah.
A lot easier.
Your task is to knock a few characters off each time, so that you're getting closer and closer to just the machine turning on.
And you said, I think, the last thing was if you block something, then it's like the thirst of the vehicle increases because you blocked it, and it can be then filled by something higher if the door is open. I'm not sure I remember the words. I thought that was the idea, and I wanted to find out. I think I had an idea of what you're talking about, but I'd like to find that back and see if
I don't think so. I believe that's confused with something else.
Is that what the text said?
No, I thought so. Someone else who remembers.
Okay, say that again. Maybe we can clarify it if we said it right.
Okay, like you have a thirst, or the wrong vehicle gives you a signal or whatever. When you block it,
A human signal.
then it's like the thirst increases because you blocked it. And then it can be
Because you blocked it. If we said that, I don't believe we meant it. Now I'd like to know the context.
Alex, do you know what?
Block it. Expression of that one way. It'll try and find another way to come out different.
Well, we've said that all along, that if you block it one way, it'll find another outlet. But I don't know that your thirst would increase for that particular thing. In other words, it would decrease more than it would increase. And
I'm trying to, I'd sure like to remember that. Does anybody remember? Do you know you remember that?
That's the way.
What were we talking about?
Well, I said that you said that you were talking about if you block something, like the vehicle wants to express itself in some way, like anger or something like that, and if you block it, you shut that door, and you don't feed that desire of the vehicle for that. Like if you give in to anger, you increase you don't decrease the desire for the vehicle to have anger. If you block it, then you shut that off, but you open the door to something else.
well, you don't automatically,
No.
but it just happens.
You know, it's like an addiction. If you block something, let's say an alcoholic, he sees a sign, a billboard, advertising his favorite scotch or whatever it was, and it registers. If he blocks it, the moment it registers, he's in better shape than if he began to give into it. Now, when you're talking about anger, and you say you give into it, and since you do release it when you let it out, but the habit is, the addiction is set up. The habit of anger will return even sooner by releasing it. And in reverse, each time you block something, it returns less and slower, and until your block gets to be quicker and more effective. But anytime you give in to something and permit yourself the outburst or the desire of the vehicle in that way, it might be satisfied for the moment, but then the desire gets to be greater, and the return is even faster, and the satisfaction is even less. It takes more to satisfy it each time. And in reverse, when you block it, then the next time it takes a little less blockage, if it were the same amount of expression coming. Now that doesn't say, do you know what we mean by that? Like, let's say that the vehicle was responding to something and you blocked it good. If that same degree of thing was coming from those in your strain who are affecting you the next time, and you blocked it good the first time, you wouldn't, the second blockage wouldn't take as much effort. But that isn't to say that if you have a real attack that you could say, well, I must not have blocked very good the next time. Those two don't go together, because your strain might have sent you a tremendous attack in that area, which you're now ready for better than you would have been before, because you have applied blockage toward the times that were not as great as this one. Can you all follow that?
Work on my homework more, but when I go through the day,
the craft and work on normal tasks and try to examine all the different ways that I need to improve. And I can still see so many ways where I feel like there's conflict because I feel like my brain still registers the critical analysis of something, and I just haven't learned. I don't think I feel like I've learned how to sort it out. Like if I'm performing a test and I see something that maybe my interpretation is that it's not according to the procedure, for example, and I don't want to do that critically, and I don't want to make a judgment of it, but yet I haven't really learned how to sort out that feeling, or am I just observing it, or just might observe somebody teasing somebody, and I'm not sure how to register it, or if I'm
Well, first, people shouldn't be teasing somebody because it doesn't fit. There isn't a place for it.
No, it's awkward. There's no easy out for teasing. You don't know how to handle it because your vehicle has to get in a certain mood or certain frame of mind to be receptive to teasing, and then both of those put you down on a very human level.
Second, when you see something somebody is doing and it registers like it isn't the way you would do it, you've got to block it. In other words, there are 35 computers, 37 kilowatts in this room, and we would all do something different, but we all try to stick to the same procedure. But even the interpretation of the procedure can be different. And we know that everyone wants to do it according to procedure. And what you have to do is convert that thought to an understanding type of thought. The only time you would take it in a critical way or let it register in your brain would be if they were doing damage to the tools or equipment or security. And otherwise, you ought to overlook those things. And now, if an individual is causing a lot of...
Plus, not trust. You've got to know that your assessment is not trustworthy. And then we have a system to take care of that. I mean, we all know that as individuals, we can't be trusted. It's as we use the system and check partners and go into the older member and so forth, that's how we come to our judgment. But as individuals, our judgment system is not. I didn't want to stop you.
The only thing you would, you just have to not see. You have to kind of talk yourself through this. Now, you're in an out-of-craft path most of the time, and then when you come back here and you see something happen, and you're given the privilege of getting rid of anything that needs to be gotten rid of, right? Because of the experiences that you have in the craft here. And if you're working with someone and they aren't doing it exactly the way you would do it, doesn't mean that you're right and they're wrong. If they're accomplishing it and you can see that they're trying, if they're trying to improvise and bring in new procedures, then that's different. But if they're doing it and you feel like they're trying to do it to the best of their ability, according to the way they would interpret it, then you just have to overlook it and try to squelch that feeling that you have. But you
now, if you're working with somebody on the task, it should be their place to be using you as a check partner, and that's when you're exercising your interpretation of the procedure. When they're checking with you about it.
Right, if they ask you, do you think this is the right, should we be doing it this way? And you say, well, my interpretation, I don't know, I question it, which you can question. And if you do it in the right way, you know, and then the person said, oh, well, goodness, what do you think we should be doing? You always should have an attitude of, I'm not always right in the way I'm doing it, even if I'm a primary. Because if you're a primary, then you ought to be checking with your check partner. And it should be agreed upon that you do it a certain way.
And didn't we, I want to bring this up again to be sure we haven't forgotten it, because it wasn't that many weeks ago that we said, look, if we're both of equal status on the task, and the person who brings it up puts the question to the other person, right? And that usually is a safeguard, because you catch the person off guard, and they usually come better in procedure. It's when the vehicle wants to do it their way and has thought about it in advance and has this idea that this is the interpretation we should be using, that it's least trustworthy. It's when the vehicle is taken off guard by your saying, hey, Rody, is this the time that we're to do so-and-so? Is it 5 o'clock we're to do it, or 6, or what time? And he knows, I've taken him off guard. You see, and he gives a better answer.
If you're preparing toast,